Hello, I'm Richard Curtin. I'm a representative at Catchlight Art Gallery, and today I'm working on Candace Cain. Where I am in this process is I do a burnt sienna ground, and then I put in a darker burnt umber and the darker shadows, and then I add a white and the white highlight and start blending all those colors together. It's kind of the beginning process of the portraiture. My first process is getting the photograph. I generally like to photograph people that I know. I like to paint people that I know. I have a better sense of being able to paint someone that I'm fond of rather than getting a commission of someone I don't know. And so I'm in the process now of adding my brightest highlights. I probably have some more dark shadows to do. And so I'm going to start adding in a lot of these brightest highlights, and then I'll start adding color. This is really my favorite part of the process. Scumbling, which is that right there. It's just a real heavy brush. It's exactly what it sounds like. It sounds like scumbling. You're really scumbling the paint on the canvas. Another thing I like to do at this point is I have old towels that I use, and I cut them up and I get a little turpentine on it so it helps to thin the paint. I'm going to use a little bit of yellow. I'm kind of breaking my process for you, but especially in here, I see all this yellow, so I will just sort of really lightly, it's sort of a transparent wash or transparent glaze that I'll just kind of lay in with just an old piece of towel, and it will go in the heavy blonde areas as in kind of an underpainting and an underwash. Most of it will get covered up, but a lot of times you'll see it in the final painting. It's just a really nice underpainting. And I do that with the burnt sienna. I do it even with the umber. Umber, I start using the paint, but in this process, getting a lot of pushed color, if you will, in areas that you really just want to highlight. And it's really my favorite part. I feel sort of scumbling with a rag. So it sort of acts as a glaze or even an oil wash. I do love the sound. But with her, she's very golden. She's a California girl. And so I also see a lot of the orange, burnt sienna, the yellows, and I see a real heavy golden, the golden girl. I tend to think of my work as very linear. I really like a really strong, heavy line, and I'm moving away from that and trying to blend more, but it's very linear. I think I also prefer to paint females, or men who are dressed as female. Um, there's an understanding I have about makeup and how it's applied. And a lot of times when I'm painting, I think of painting my own face or being able to paint someone else, and it's very similar to me. There's a complete masking that happens with a foundation, and then all of the makeup that's applied to it to bring out a roundness or cheekbones or a roundness in a lip, or even emphasizing the facial structure. The application of makeup really applies to the application of paint, and often those applications of makeup are in those wide areas, and then they're separated with contour and darker colors and shadow. And I feel like the process is a little backwards because you're putting in the contours first and then applying the makeup on top of it, and then you're going to bring the contours back in. When I do flesh tones, I like to start with a cobalt violet. I like yellow ochre and a cad yellow. Gets a really nice brown that when you add white becomes a nice golden flesh tone that when you add a little red becomes a beautiful pink. And so that's my favorite flesh tone base. You can then pull in a lemon yellow and it gets it a little more golden pink. Then darken that with a little bit of green for a nice kind of shadow. So I do paint a lot of female impersonators, and I paint a lot of people who I find to be extremely comfortable in their own skin, but tend to be on kind of in the misfit category of who they are. Recently, read an article about whether or not portraiture was dead, and the writer thinks that it is. And one of the arguments that he was talking about was the argument of today's portraiture is really about the selfie. Instagram and Facebook and all of the social medias of, how often we take a selfie, and today's young adult takes anywhere between 20 and 30 selfies a day. And so my question is, where are those selfies going? How are those selfies going to be kept? Are they going to be documented? Are they going to be saved somehow? I think the answer to that is no. But I think that we will wake up one morning and we will find that everything that we purged to the internet in the last 10 years may be gone. Where is it all going to be kept? And in 10 years, it's kind of like the slide. But how many people have a slide projector that they can show it on? And so in 10 or 20 years, are we going to have the technology that's going to be able to access the technology of today? And are we going to care? This, God willing, will stand the test of time. And a lot of my portraits are relevant to right now because drag queens are infiltrating the mainstream media. Drag queens are, which at one point where the art form for the gay community is now becoming the art form of mainstream media. And my portraits of drag queens will only emphasize the fact that drag queens are important in entertainment in the early 21st century. I don't really like to paint the same portrait twice. I have painted the same landscape on many occasions, but every time it's different. The light is different, the atmosphere is different, the clouds are different. And so I don't ever feel like it's the same painting. And I think there's also something important to talk about is how you feel when you're painting it. I'll usually take anywhere between 30 and 50 photographs. And usually I know. When I take it, I'll see it almost instantly. I'll know that that's it. And so if I know if it's that's it, I tend to start wrapping it up in my head. I normally get exactly what's in my head, what I'm looking for in the first 5 photographs. I find that kind of odd. The underpainting tends to be very thin and light paint, and I start building on top of it. And I'll go back in and build up the paint and also build up the texture. I'm also putting in areas of dark, blending it a little bit so that it's not so linear. Especially here, having it come back around and come out and forward, and then back around and under to create that shadow, which is going to end up being a curl. And so you can really see it there, where this curl is coming around, it's coming back from the face out toward us. It's going to pick up that highlight, and then it's going to go back into shadow. I also like painting cows. I want to be this cow. I want to be her. I want to be in a field, and I want my food to be just thrown out into the field. I don't want to have any worry. And I want to be under the great big open sky. And I want to be able to make as much noise at people as I choose to. And that's what I want to be. I want to be a fat, happy cow in the desert.
Well taken care of.
Very well taken care of. They all have a specific personality. Many of them do have names, but number 18 doesn't. But every time I am there and I have a camera in my hand, she poses for me. I know she does. She'll come up and she kind of does this little rocking motion with her front foot, and you can see she has a kind of a rocking motion, and I don't know if you can really sense it with her feet, but one's just a little bit in front of the other, and she kind of wiggles her behind. I think that she knows that she's being photographed, and I think that she likes it, because when I don't have the camera, she doesn't act like that. some of them, of course, are for sale, and of course the calves are for sale, and but some of them, I'm not sure. I think number 18 is going to be there for the rest of her life, and I know Mabel's going to be there for the rest of her life because she's a midwife cow, and she teaches the young cows how to be mothers. And so I really love cows. I'm so jealous. I would like to be a cow. I just don't want to be eaten. So this past July, my brothers and I were together. And this is my oldest brother, Robbie, and my older brother, Roger. I'm the youngest. And while we were all together, I had someone photograph me and my brothers probably about 20 times, probably under too much of my direction. So I cut myself out of this one, and people have asked me why I cut myself out, and and why I didn't represent myself in the same painting. And I feel a little like I am represented because I painted it. Robbie, the figure to the left, is the peacekeeper, and the figure to the right, Roger, is sort of the instigator. My brothers and I are pretty close, so I'm glad to have had it done.